I, yes, I was confused. I don't know what else I would work for this. As far as I can tell, it's where everything was included. This is just a Excel sheet's transferred for some reason. You're sure what else?
I need the Excel sheet.
You actually need it attached.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I can attach it.
You can email me it if you want.
Okay.
For some reason, like when I go to download it,
Yeah, it all down to.
it's,
Okay.
yeah.
I don't know why I transferred that. I'll send that over to you then.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
that's okay. Those who are online, can you hear me? Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so the exam is on Friday, the in-person portion of the exam. It is broken into two parts this time. Simply because there's some Excel parts I want you to do and make sure you know how to do. So, the take-home portion we put up Sunday or 11:54 Saturday night. Anyways, it's due this coming Sunday night. And on Wednesday, you can work on it, ask questions. There's one where you have to measure the arm span and the height of 10 people, so we could do that in class. And I'll bring tape measures and any questions.
You give our own data, like if you have a plan to monitor, that's fine.
Yeah. The other thing is if you want to do it ahead of time and then check your answers with people around you to see if you've done correctly, you can do that. You can ask questions, but everyone has to turn in their own work. So even if all of you measure, 10 people measure each other, you should have the same answers, but I want the Excel sheet to be yours. You type it in. So it's not a group assignment, it's individual, but you can work. In person, you cannot check your neighbor's answers. And it is on Friday. If you can't make it, I need to know ahead of time, and I need YSU has a list of excuses that you're allowed to use. I mean, if it's something else, let me know and we'll decide. But that doesn't mean if you slept in and you text me, I'm on my way, I can still take it, something, we'll figure something. Hopefully you're not sleeping in for this part, this is fine. Any questions? Okay, the take home, if you didn't look at it, there's 3 questions, it's 30 points total. The in-person, right now, it has 8 questions. It won't go more than that, but it might go less. I'm not sure. And it's similar to this. So you want to be able to explain and give examples of qualitative data and quantitative data, discrete and continuous. So I might say, what is the difference between qualitative and quantitative data, and give examples. Qualitative, remember, qualitative is something that is a quality. Most of the time, it is not a number. There's a few cases, social security number. Someone on, I don't remember which, oh, it was my other class, because I didn't grade the most recent ones here yet. Don't forget, project 4, the homework for it was due last night. If you didn't get it in, please get it in. But someone put what Super Bowl they were in, and then the quarterback college. Both of those are qualitative. Super Bowl 1, Super Bowl 2, finding an average Super Bowl wouldn't make sense. So those are both qualitative. Be careful. Qualitative can have a number in it, but finding its average wouldn't make sense. For the project, they both need to be quantitative. So then what I suggested was they could look at 25 different Super Bowls, take the quarterback, yards rushing, yards passed, or maybe yards rushing and the number of points. but it needs to be two numerical values. So these are two examples. Qualitative could be the type of dog, ice cream. Super Bowl person was in. Those are all qualitative. Quantitative is numerical, speed of a plane, height of a building. The one on your take-home portion of your exam, the length of an arm, the height. Those are all quantitative. Any questions? Discrete and continuous are both quantitative data. Discrete is the thing you can count. The number of registers at the store, the number of people in a classroom, the number of televisions sold on Black Friday. You're not going to sell part of any of them. They're just all whole numbers, no fractions. Where continuous has the decimals and fractions. Weight, height, length, and time are all things that we can put into a fraction. 5.5 feet tall. Class is, well, our class is only 15 minutes. 1.5 hours. So time, length, height, and weight are the most common for decimals and fractions. So they're the most common that are continuous. Any questions? So be able to explain the difference and give an example of each. I think that these two, for some reason, last semester were the most missed. I thought they were going to be the easiest, but for some, and it was written just like that. What is the difference between qualitative and quantitative? And give an example. So I'm not sure. I don't know, but they were the most missed, those two problems. Any questions on that? There'll be a box plot and I'll ask questions to these. Not as many, but I figured cover the whole thing. Remember, a box plot breaks things into quarters. The two pink ones, that's your largest value and your smallest value. The blue is the middle or median. And then this is your lower quartile and your upper quartile. They're broken into quarters, so between each set of points is 25%. So this is the bottom 25, the next 25, the next 25, and the last 25. So the median is the middle value, which I had already said, that's your 17. So the one in the middle, or in the box, is the median. There are an equal number on both sides of it for the data. How do you find the range? Anyone? Max minus min. And the largest one is 32. The smallest is 5. Subtract them, range. The range is your largest minus your smallest. What is the 75th percentile? What does it mean?
More than 75% out.
Is greater than 75% of other and less than the top 25%.
Yeah. So 75% of the data is below it,
Yeah.
25% is above it, exactly. There is, I don't know if it's on this one or the normal curve, but I do ask what it means. So 75% of the data is below it. Remember, these are quarters. So this first one, up to 10, is 25% of the data. Go to 17, there's another 25%, so that's 50%. So one more, because these are each quarter, so this is 75%. So 20 has 75% of the data below it. Therefore, the 75th percentile is 20. This is points scored per game. So 75% of the games, the scores were below 20. If you were asked to explain it, then that's what you would say. The points scored during a game, 75% were below 20 points. Any questions on that? So the percentile, whatever percentile you're ranked in school, that's the percent below you. So what would the 25th percentile be? The first quarter down at the bottom, 25% goes up to 10. So 25% of the game's scores were below. Any questions on percent? What percent scored above 10? So find 10, add your quarters. So look where the 10 is, 25, 25, and 25. So 75% of players scored above 10 goals or games. I thought it was players, but on the exam, anything that has a space, a line, like if I put median equals and there's a blank line, you just have to write the number and you do not need a sentence. And I think these all have. Any questions so far? What percent scored below 17? Where 17 is, there's two sections below it. Each section is a quarter, so 50% scored or below 17. Any questions on that? Any questions on the box and whiskers? So everything's quarters. The normal curve, told you needed to memorize the percent, but when I was making the test, I decided to put them in. So you have the percents, but you do need to fill on the bottom. It says the average on the exam was 84 with a standard deviation of 5. Draw a bell-shaped or normal curve and then answer the question. For the first part, the mean is 84. That's what goes in the middle. And it goes 3 units each way. So 84 will be in the middle, and then we're counting by 5s because that's the standard deviation. So 84 goes in the middle, and then we go 3 each way. Any questions? So on the exam, the percents will be there, but you need to fill in the numbers below. And then when you're reading the questions, if the numbers are not below, then you did something wrong. Maybe you just added wrong, but those numbers should be there. What percent of students scored below 79? So we wanted below 79, see where the 79 is, add the percents below it. 0.1, 2.1, and 13.6 gives us 15.8%. So 15.8% of the students scored below a 79 on the exam. Any questions? What is the 15.8% tax? 79, because we found the percent below it. But if you didn't have to find it first, just start at the bottom, keep, so you hit 15.8. So if we go 0.1 plus 2.1, we get 2.2, we're not there yet. We have the next one, we get 15.8, so 79 is the 15.8%. Think the one that. What's the, I think that's 84, what's the 84th percentile? The 84th percentile. What is it?
50%.
No, it'll be one of the numbers on the bottom. 89. We start with 0.1, add 2.1, add 13.6, we know we get the 15.8. And then we add the next two, we will get 84. So right here, if you add all the percents below 89, you will get the 84%, which means it's the 84th percent. So whatever percentile I ask for, start at the bottom, and once you reach it, then that's the number. Questions on them? What percent of students scored above a 94? Anyone? 2.2? 94 is here, the two above it, 2.1 and 0.1, 2.2%. Any questions? So the percents will be there, but you will need to put the mean in the middle and then count by the standard deviation and answer a couple questions. Questions? So either on this one or the one before, you will need to explain a percentile. Question. Electric bill. Using the electric bill below, find each. So we have the Rock's address, we have how much electricity was used, and we have the cost. If we want to find the number of kilowatt hours, I don't know if I have to change Penny's name to Blaine's, but we want to find out how much electricity was used. The two where your electricity was used, and what do we need to do with the numbers? Think of the mileage in your car. If you look at it and then you drive to school and you look at it again, what do you have to do to see how far you drove? So you need to subtract it. It's just a continuous usage, just like the miles in your car. So we use 1,400 kilowatts of electricity. Equation for the cost. Why, when X kilowatt hours are used? Now, the equation will not be given. But it's cost, so we look over where the cost is. Notice that the one value is not multiplied by anything. It's not a rate, where the other four are per kilowatt hour. Per kilowatt hour makes them the slope. The other part then is the fixed cost, which is your B. So since customer charge is a fixed cost, it doesn't matter how many kilowatt hours you use. Still have that P on it. Your B. The other four are rate. They're per kilowatt hour. And so by adding them together, you get your slope. It's a 0.5. So y equals 0.5x plus 1252. This is a linear equation because it's increasing by the same amount. 0.5. Any questions on the equation? This is one that has the most parts. If I leave them all there. Explain the slope. So the slope was the 0.5 that we found. Where slope is change in y over change in x. Now I would write it as a fraction. And I also, because it wasn't a whole dollar, I changed it to cents. So slope is change in y over change in x, which means this is y and this is x. Y is cost and x is kilowatt hours. I know that x is kilowatt hours because if I look back where I got my slope, it was per kilowatt hours, which means x is per kilowatt hours. So just start with the denominator. Each kilowatt hour costs 50 cents. So each additional kilowatt hour that is used, the cost increases by 50 cents. So you'll definitely have to explain the slope somewhere. Any questions? A few people are still writing, but if you are prepared for the next one, you need to explain the y-intercept. Any questions on slope? So x goes up by 1, and then y goes up or down, depending on if it's positive or negative by that value. When you're explaining the y-intercept was b, the 1252. Y-intercept is when x equals what?
When x equals 0. When x equals 0, y equals b.
When x equals 0, in this case, y is 1252. 0 is our x value. X we said was kilowatt hours. So when there's no kilowatt hours used, the cost is 1252. If you left for the weekend or the month, I guess would have to be a whole month, and shut everything down, 1252 at the end of it. Any questions on that? Using the electric bill below, find what is Dwayne's cost this month. So we said he used, I think it was $1,400 kilowatt hour. How would we find it? Well, the equation you found is how you can find it. So if you think you're going to, if you have your equation and you think you're going to be using a lot of electricity, you plug in how much you think you're going to use. Now remember, we take the kilowatt hours from part A, we use 1,400, and the equation that we found. Now, if you weren't sure, do I plug in for X, do I plug in for Y? Per kilowatt hour, so X is the kilowatt hour. 1,400 kilowatt hours, means we plug it in for X. $712.50. Any questions? If Fred makes $80,000 this year, how much will he pay in? So the first thing you want to do is decide which row you're using.
Technically the fourth row, because the first row is if taxable income is between the table.
Oh, yeah, if we count the blankness. But the rows with the values in it, it would be the first. Yeah, this row, the next one, so it's 80,000 is between 38,000 and 82,000. Then you just go across, follow what it says. $4,453.50 plus 22% as a decimal. Multiply by that on multiply. So we know we're doing the $4,453.50, 22% of, we had 80,000. We want to find out how much went into this. Take 80,000. Now when you're subtracting, go across and use this value. Do not use the $1 because that's the part that went in. If it was 38,700, it would have stayed here. The $1 goes into that. So make sure you're subtracting by these. So they might have changed it with the new book, but in the old book, one of these is wrong. So the 22% as a decimal is only on the $41,300. Getting $13,539.50. Any questions? So first use the first column to see what row you need. And then go across. Any questions? There's a question that asks you, for instance, if R equals a -1, what do you know about the scatter plot and the trend line? Well, if R equals a -1, I know the trend line's going down from left to right. And if it's 1, I know that they are all on the line. So kind of similar to with Smarty's group assignments that you had. If R is 1, the line is increasing from left to right, and all the points are on the line. If it's 0.8, notice the positives, they're all, the line is going up. But the closer you get to 0, the more spread out the data is. When it's 0, it's spread all over the place, and the line is pretty close to horizontal. The negative R's, the line is all going downward, and the closer to 1, the closer they are to the line. If it's a negative 1, they are all on the line. So if I ask the question, I would probably use R equals 1, 0, or negative 1. Any questions on explaining it? So when R is positive, the line is increasing from left to right. When it's negative, it's decreasing. And the closer to 1 or negative 1, the closer they are to the line. Any questions? When we do it's the first problem on the take home where you measure the arm span and the height. That should be 1 or negative 1, depending on what we put for X or Y. I forget. But there's a very strong relationship. It won't be exactly that. I guess it would be more like 0.9 something. But there's a very strong relationship between the arm span and your height. They should be very close to the same value. Any questions? What is the difference between linear and exponential growth? What do we know about linear? Wait, say that again?
It's only a percentage.
For linear or for
I'm
exponential?
sorry.
Okay, exponential grows by 1% because you're making interest off the interest, where linear grows by same rate every time. So you want to be able to explain the difference between the two, and you need to know the equations. If something is linear, it's y equals mx plus b. Exponential, remember it's the initial amount, 1 plus trick, and then exponent is your time. R is the rate as a decimal. And y would be the total amount at whatever time you're plugging in. Initial amount would be added in. So if I put 500 down, when I find y, that 500 is already included in that. Any questions in the difference? So make sure you know the formulas and you know how to tell the difference between them. You deposit 500 into an account and make $20 interest per year. Answer the questions that follow. Write the equation. But if we're going to write the equation, we need to know if it's linear or exponential. If we're depositing $500 and we're making $200 per year, that linear or exponential? Linear. So that means our equation is y equals what?
Y equals mx.
120, which is the slope? 20 is the rate because it's per year, so that's your slope. And your y-intercept is the starting amount, which is $500. We know X is years, well, one, it says it here, but also it's $20 per year, so X has to be years. Y is the total amount. Question. There's probably one missing. How much is in the account after 13 years? So do we plug 13 in for X or for Y? Because the 20 is per year, so X is years, so 13 years, 13 gets plugged in for X. At the end of 13 years, we have $760. Any questions on that? So linear, y equals mx plus b. Slope is the rate. B is the fixed amount, the starting amount. Any questions? What if we deposit $500 into an account that makes 7.2% per year? Linear or exponential? It's exponential because it's growing by a percent. You're making interest off of the interest. Therefore, we're using the equation y equals the initial amount and plus r written as a decimal to the x. Initial amount is how much? The deposit. R is the rate, but what do we have to remember to do with the 7.2%? Good. Any questions on the equation? How much is in the account after 13 years? Make sure you plug it in. When I was grading some of the homework, they're plugging it in correctly, but then I was seeing the wrong answer. So make sure you understand how to use your calculator. You should be getting $1,234.50. So if you don't have your calculator with you, make sure you're plugging these in and getting it correct. Any questions? Everyone getting the value in their calculator? You would either use a caret, then put the 13, or you'll use x to the y, depending on how your calculator does it. And then some of them have x with a little square on the top. Is everyone getting 1,234? When Joe's bill comes in December, the balance is $800, and he decides to make monthly payments of $100 for December, January, and February. Then he will see what he owes and maybe try and pay it off in March. There's definitely one, well, right now on the exam, I did do the credit card one. They're almost the same. So anyways, when you get your statement, if you pay it off, you don't owe any interest the first time. On the exam, it would look like this, and then I'd have January, February, March, and you fill it in. Why I started putting them all in. You take your balance, which was 800, add the interest, and subtract what you paid. He's making $100 payments. So that's how we subtracted the $100, which means when he sent the statement in, then he has a balance of $700 that he has to pay interest on. The interest was 9.3%, so remember, write it as a decimal. This month, he made $65.10 of the owes. And this was $65.10. Any questions? So you take the balance, the interest, and subtract the payment. And that's what you pay interest on. So then the next month, your balance, 700, plus the 65 cent interest, and subtract the payment. $665.10. That's what you pay interest on. And so we take the 665 times the interest, he has to pay $61.85 more in interest. Question. Be careful, the biggest mistakes that happen in this one is the rounding, so make sure it's regular rounding. I'm gonna do last month. Take the 665 plus the interest 61.85, add them together and subtract the $100 payment. Get 626.95. And that's what you pay interest on. So when you get this March statement, it says previous balance 626.95, interest 58.31. Any questions? How much is needed to pay off in March? Well, any month that you want to pay off, you just add across. So March, we take the 626.95 and add it to 58.31. And if he was gonna pay it off in March, he'd owe $685.26. You always wanna pay as much as you can, so then you're not paying all of this interest. Most credit card interest rates are double. If you miss a payment, there's 21. Any questions, sir? You are buying a home for $180,000 and take a loan on the entire amount. If annual interest rate is 6.5%, find the payments for a 30-year loan using the formula. The formula will be given. I just want to make sure you know how to plug into it. P is the amount of the loan. R is the rate, 6.5% in this case, as a decimal. And Y is the number of years. Years are usually 30 or 15 for a house. For a car, 5 or 6. So we plug in the values. On the test, I want to see the values plugged in and your answer. I recommend doing top and bottom separately and then dividing them. When you do them separately, you do not have to write this whole decimal in the denominator down. To put 0.856 out. But use the whole percent that's in your calculator or decimal. Don't round it. Now, when you divide those, you should be getting $1,137.72. If you get an error, this exponent, the negative 12 times 30, it's a negative, not a minus in your calculator. You need a negative sign. The negative is usually in the bottom row, sometimes above the 7, depending on the calculator. But most of them, the negative is in the bottom. Is everyone getting 1137? Any questions on it? I didn't ask the contribution and everything on the test. I just wanted to make sure you knew how to use the formula. Same thing here. Two formulas we learned for effective rate. The first one is compounding, monthly, quarterly, semi-annually. C is the compounded amount, and R is the rate as a decimal. The second one, e to the r minus 1, is compounded continuously. So if we, notice it says round the percent to the 100. If we find it compounded monthly, that would be the first formula. What would C be? If it's monthly, how many times a year? If it's quarterly, how many times a year? 4. And semi-annually? It will be one of those. So I don't know if it's gonna be monthly, quarterly, or semi-annually. Monthly is 12 for C. Quarterly, the 12 would change to 4s. Semi-annually, they would be 2s. But do remember the rate needs to be written as a decimal. Your answer should be close to 6.5, but larger. If you're getting 4.2, you're doing something wrong. It will be close. If the 12 goes up into the exponents for your calculator, come back down before you subtract 1. If you use the caret and then the 12, you can just subtract 1. But you should be getting 0.6697182, but make it a percent before you round. How do we make the decimal a percent? Times it by 100. And then round. 100th rounds 2 decimal places because 100 has 2 zeros in it. Notice that 9 is going to become a 0. You should show that. It's a significant digit. And that way I know you rounded to the 100th and not the 10th. So if it does end up being a 0, I still want to see that so that I know you rounded properly. Any questions on that? So this compounded one could be monthly, quarterly, or semi-annual. Any questions on it? Compounded continuously uses the E. You want, the E button is wherever your LN button is in your calculator. Hit the second and LN and either a caret or it'll go up in the exponent. And you put your percent as a decimal and subtract 1. Again, you're going to get a value close to the 6.5. It should be larger than the monthly. Continuously would compound more. Here it is. 6.72. So please make sure if you don't have your calculator that you try these. Don't forget your calculator and pencils and no computer, no iPhone watch for Wednesday. But you do want to bring your technology. Sorry, I said Wednesday. You do want to bring your technology on Wednesday because you can ask me questions on the take home and check answers with your neighbors. Measure everyone's arm length and height. On Friday, the exam, no technology, pencil and calculator. Any questions? Any questions? Tomorrow, Wednesday. Any questions? All right, so make sure you look over all these. The first thing, I'll answer any questions that you want to get out of the problem. After that, right. Take comes to Sunday night. That's what we did today? Yeah, reviews Fridays.
I can finish there when kids have class. After that.
It's not,
Yeah. I'm surprised you know something like that.
I know. That's for them.
Yeah.
Sheet is up here.
Here's something that I did in class and Friday and forgot to do afterwards.
Oh, no.
And absent, so.
Oh, you were here?
But I couldn't do that in Wednesday.
What's your last name?
It's busy.
Okay. That was Friday, right? You're all set.
Thank you.
Is this your pen? Yeah. You too. See you Wednesday. Those who are online, are there any questions?